site. Yeah, I think anytime so we ended up there. We actually went there for a period of time over their Indian days and during their powwow. And, I would never have made this film if they hadn't agreed to let me be there and let people interview if they wanted to. Because if it just been everyone else talking about it, wow, that would have been, that would have been a promo video for Brocket 99 in a lot of ways, I think. It was nice. It was good. I think what I found was that the tape really didn't bother them as much. I think they kind of looked at it in the way that I looked at it, in obviously with a much better understanding than I ever will, that it was just a summary of all the jokes about Aboriginals. The tape wasn't a unique thing in the sense that it brought up new jokes or new stereotypes. It was just a nice, tidy, two-sided summary of all the jokes about Aboriginals that you could listen on to, say, when you drive from Fort Macleod to Calgary, an hour and a half, 2-hour drive, hour and a half, 2-hour tape.
One of the people you met there was Cowboy Smith X. And some of what he told you about the Brocket 99 tape. Cowboy Smith X. Nilesh, are you surprised by the reaction the tape still gets?
I think if you've ever heard the tape, I don't think you're ever surprised that people react to it.
In other words, in the new millennium, there's no difference in terms of the way people are interacting with this tape than in the 80s when it first started getting passed.
There may be a difference in the way that somebody heard it in the 80s is reacting to it now. But I think for people initially hearing it, like for their first time, I think that there's still the same reactions, which are going to be either very funny but inaccurate, and just racist and offensive. I don't think that people go, well, that just existed in 86 and that was just a different time. I think that a lot of those feelings and sentiments between the people still exist.
We've kind of been dancing around this, but let me just ask you straight up. Do you think it's racist?
Yes, I think the tape's racist, okay. Clearly.
Does it, well, I just wanted to be sure that everybody, does it matter that you're non-native? I mean, what difference does it make in the way you tell the story, do you think?
That's something that's come up quite often, and it's something that I sort of struggle over in the whole diversity thing of everything and how I can make this film, because I'm sort of in between or something, and I don't really think of myself as in between. I had a good conversation with my editor about this, Art Mon, and it essentially went around. Art was saying, like, you could have only done this. You could have only got these people to speak like this. And I said, but imagine if you did it, Art. Art's 6 foot tall, Caucasian, a sizable man, good looking man. He could have met so many more Bryces, I think, than I ever could. I don't think I had, because of the way that I'm physically made up, had the ability to really get into the depths of the one side that has hate and racism in them, to talk about why they feel this and really the deeper issues. So there's a trade-off. Like, I'm sort of this weird sort of middle ground dude who grew up in this...
I wonder if somehow, especially when you're wearing the T-shirt, if somehow because you're a quote-unquote visible minority, it then makes it okay for the Bryces to sort of, well, he thinks it's all right, then it can't be so bad.
Do I authenticate it? Do I give some sort of validity to this conversation, I think is where we're going.
Wow.
I don't really think it's me who validates it and what my physical makeup is. It's actually just the way I grew up. I think that validates the conversation. I grew up in a smaller town where this tape was, and the stereotypes in it were very prevalent. Also, the people we're meeting on the road and their attitudes and the way they talk, I can talk like that. And I do talk like that every day. It's just the way I am. And pretty quickly, you get these people who are not sure of me. Like, he must be some sort of city person who's out to prove Alberta's racist and Canada's racist and all minorities should rise up. But pretty quickly, they kind of figure out in the way I talk and just who I am that I'm really just there to talk. I'm somebody who heard the tape as well. But I think everybody knows that I'm going to show both sides. And I think there's one side that needs more to be talked about, and that's the side that explores the stereotype and our attitudes as Canadians towards Aboriginals.
Nilesh, we don't usually talk to people until the film is on screen somewhere. but we were particularly fascinated by this story. Your film isn't even finished. What's the holdup? Come on.
What's the holdup? Well, I'm sitting in a bastion of funding right now in the basement, and yet that bastion of funding rejected the film along with other agencies, and it's not Canadian, or I'm not good enough as a filmmaker. I don't really know what it is.
Well, I've heard this, though. Why have you had a hard time getting funding in a broadcaster?
I think off the record, one of the quotes from one of our major broadcasters was...
It will definitely be off the record on national radio.
was that this film is inflammatory to the nation. This conversation is inflammatory to the nation. A conversation about racism, a conversation about Canadians, a film that's so Canadian. You saw the film. This couldn't have been made anywhere else. Visually, it couldn't be told anywhere else. Everything about this is so rooted in us and can really open up a conversation that really helps us understand us, because I do feel that if Canadians and Aboriginals and Canada as a whole, if we can understand each other better and really make positive steps towards that, Canadians, by helping Aboriginals realize their true identity, or take back or get the chance to really be free with their identity, we'll have a better understanding of who we are and how we work in the rest of the world. And that's always the conflict in Canada, is what we do outside and what we say outside and how we act internally. And one of the best examples of how we act internally is our actions with the Aboriginal societies in Canada.
Ultimately, especially since there'll be all kinds of people stepping up with cash, but ultimately, who and where do you hope people will end up seeing your movie, Brocket 99, Rockin the Country?
God, I would love for a theatrical. There's really just not very many concrete theatrical options in Canada for documentary and the funding models of telefilm or the broadcast models that you're tied to. Therefore, you're making a broadcast film that if it does okay, maybe they'll give you a couple of screens. We want to finish this film and have it go in theaters across Canada. We'd like it to then be broadcast across Canada, because I can't see how this isn't for a Canadian audience. I look at this film and say, this is really, other countries and other peoples can watch this and relate, Australians and Aboriginals, whichever. This is so Canadian that if it can't be played over the airwaves here, it's somewhat devastating in a lot of ways for me as a filmmaker and as a Canadian, to think I can make something so, what I feel is so strongly Canadian and so important for us to talk about and entertaining. I don't feel the film is a kick in the chops at all. I think the film's actually fairly entertaining.
But as you say, watching it, at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like I'm watching a doc about a tape. It feels like I'm watching a doc about us, about Canadians.
Great, and I hope a lot of people can see that, and hopefully with the help of Jian Ghomeshi here, this film can achieve some sort of funding, so the Patelinator, being me, can finish it with his powerful team of editors.
I got at least $6 in my pocket, and at least 2 of those 6 are going to you. I got to keep the 4 first.
But you got play, right?
Nilesh, thank you so much for joining me and telling your story, and good luck with getting this film finished. And
can I do a plug?
Out there for people to see it.
We're having a screening of the Work in Progress on July 13th during Stampede, kids, in Calgary,
okay.
At the Uptown Theater.
Fabulous.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot of footage from the Stampede of last year, one of the greatest of all time.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks.
Nilesh Patel is a filmmaker in Vancouver. His film in progress is called Brocket 99, Rockin the Country. Very nice.